Fragments of silicon, guaranteed to not block the Suez Canal.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, is the regular crew with a new edition this week, starting this week. Probably more.
Was that my
Anyway,
cue to say something?
Not exactly, actually. But
Okay.
yeah, Mac is here with us. We've been doing the last News Desk show with him for about 6 months now?
Yep, almost a full season.
Man.
Yeah. And part of the plan was always to have Mac return at some point. And the reason why he's rejoining us now is he just hit affiliate with his own Twitch page. Indeed, Mac, why don't you start us off this week, since however long it's been since you've been on the show last?
I believe it's 5 years, and I'm embarrassed to say that.
Yeah. So...
it's not just affiliate, though. It's like, this has always been part of my brand, and I regret leaving it. It was pure dumb circumstances that brought me off of this show, and I feel like I'd probably be a lot further along right now if I'd have stayed. I mean, that's
who can say, but what happened.
It's a hard pill, It's a hard pill.
But no time like the present to rectify things.
Right. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't plug the fact that we are in negotiations to bring MSP back in some way, shape, or form at some undisclosed time in the future. So it seemed fitting that I reestablish my podcasting presence as something other than a angry Politico.
Yeah. And
plus I have shows to plug and stuff like that. So
yeah. And the plan is eventually Mac will be like my co-host somewhere down the line.
Right.
But for the interim, he will be part of what we call on this show the regular crew.
Right.
So it's a way to distinguish things. So, but anyway, till then, hopefully, Matt, you will enjoy your reintegration.
Right.
And
that's the plan.
So, and this is the part where we talk about our week, like on the MSP show.
Right. Well, I guess since I'm already started, I'll quickly encapsulate this. I am a full-time ride share guy. I just got affiliate on Twitch here under my username Mac Paladin, of course. And I meant to start the channel Mac Paladin's Retro Gaming Emporium 2 years ago, actually 2.5 years ago, but it through one reason or another, I never really got there. I had tech failures, the computer I wanted to use, etc., etc. I have a list here of excuses somewhere, but I lost the list. I write it on
COVID,
paper.
Evergreen excuse currently.
Perfect. Exactly. I blame the Rona. And so I mean, this was a long time in coming. It took a lot of planning. I had to change technology. I had to change locations. There was a lot of things, and so everything I tried ratcheted my anxiety. So once I got to a plateau where I felt comfortable doing it full time, I was finally able to do it, and that came in the form of me leaving my old job in retail after 24 years, and doing being my own boss basically full time. And boy, let me tell you, that was hard. That was hard. But as far as the week goes, working on comics for the first time in ages, and we're wrapping the first season of a television show of sorts on YouTube that I've been working on since 2007. And what's cool about this one is we're developing all new art for a segment that has never been produced online before. So quite excited about that, and it's called the Lavenders. So there's 3 more episodes left in the season, and they will be here sometime between now and the summer. We'll have that season wrapped, and we'll actually have a completed show under our belt for once. So, hey, finally living up to that moniker as an animator instead of just showing little chunks of things that don't go anywhere or amount to much. So we're really excited about that. And with that in mind, of course, we're also promoting the YouTube channel because on Fridays and Saturdays, I play Warzone and our second weekly session of Overwatch. And I'm told Overwatch is quite a popular game, but I'm not seeing it yet because, like, I constantly keep getting ones as far as viewers.
Popular game doesn't necessarily mean popular game for new people to come out and to watch new people start playing.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
Overwatch is a popular game, but it used to be the popular game about, what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that?
Every time I drop its name in my car, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to follow your channel." And I'm like, "Okay." I think part of it is because it has become so synonymous with competition. Similarly, Fortnite, they just came out with a new season, and so if you're not playing it competitively, people are kind of like, "Eh."
Another thing is, of course, with games like that have such a massive audience, you also have to compete with every other person who's streaming that game, right?
Oh yeah.
So then
Saturation
there
is
there is
definitely-
this sort of attitude like, well, why would I watch this new channel when there's these guys that are like already well known?
Right. Yeah, it's saturation is definitely a thing, and we talk about that regularly behind the scenes, as far as what we can do to boost channels and stuff like that. So that's kind of I think that's pretty much it as far as the important stuff. I'm pretty much going to be taking an observational role for a while and offering color commentary when I actually know something. Otherwise, I will make sure that my ignorance is not on full display during any of the broadcasts.
Oh, good.
All right. Anyway, Teddy, why don't you go next?
Well, I got my new processor in for what's going to be my new computer. A Ryzen 5 5600X. So,
Oh,
hooray. And then yeah, other than that, not a whole lot else is going on. You know, just kind of seeing if I can find computer parts on sale. Because thanks, scalpers.
Indeed.
Bitcoin peoples.
Especially them. There's a special place in hell for quote unquote professional Bitcoin miners.
yeah, the video
Or
card
not just
shortage is
Bitcoin,
something else.
crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what was that, Mac?
I was going to say that's the primary cause of the video card shortage right now, and it's been ongoing for a couple of years now.
Yeah, because video cards are cards that are designed to be able to crunch large amounts of numbers quickly, which is also what you need to block chains.
Well, and as with a lot of failed gaming consoles that were needlessly over-engineered, I'm looking at you, Atari Jaguar. There is a lot of hardware on video cards that isn't being used, and so as a result, they're loaning those cycles out.
Mm-hmm.
Really, Tippy? Sitting behind me and howling in my window.
Sounds about right.
Go on. I'm sorry. I just had some value add for your comment there.
And yeah, I guess the only other thing is I have a bigger hard drive coming for my PS3 because Sony decided, you know what, we're going to shut down the store. So I need to get all my bought games off of the internet before I cannot anymore.
Which is all well and good until in case they turn off the servers, at which point you'll stop being able to sync with it. And
Well, apparently if the clock battery dies in my PS3, I might as well pirate everything because all my licenses will be lost. So that's fun.
Right.
Anyway, I think
Anything
that's it
else?
from me. At least that I could think of offhand.
That's fine. Twilight?
Yeah, I don't really have anything significant to talk about this week besides stuff with the spring weather. Yeah, first week of cutting grass, whatnot, and yeah, something I don't really mind much myself. Some people hate it.
Hi, hello.
It was exactly. But anyway, yeah. Besides the mundane life stuff, had me and Mac and Kira played Overwatch Monday, and that went pretty well.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, me learned how to play the walking tank and such.
Reinhardt.
Yeah, Reinhardt. And experimenting and seeing who I like playing as better and such.
You did some Bridget too, didn't you?
Yeah, I mostly played as Bridget during the skirmishes.
These are mostly tank characters. That's what you're trying for? Or?
I was playing on the flex option, which is I can jump between whoever I want to play, what role I want to play as. There's the 3 roles: damage, DPS, tank, and support. Yeah, just been jumping between those. But anyway, besides that, that's it for me.
All right. Well, Doll, it's your go.
Sorry, I've had a little bit of a headache today because the weather's supposed to be kind of lame coming up, so that sometimes causes that. It's been pretty warm up here for just March in Maine, which is kind of annoying to me. Prefers colder weather, but I guess that's been okay.
Okay.
Work's still going pretty smoothly. We've actually gotten a little bit of more help with some of the stuff, so there's a little bit less pressure, but so yeah, that's been going pretty well. Let's see. I managed after some difficulty to track down a new set of Joy-Cons today because it's not the drift this time, but last night, and they're working. My old ones are working now, which is good. But last night, one of them wouldn't connect to the Switch when it was not physically connected. So I figured since there was hard to find places that actually had them in stock, that it would be better to get a new set just in case. And I had to end up getting a blue and red one instead of another set of grays, which is what I prefer. But yeah, for most games I can use the Pro Controller if I want to or have to. But I've been playing picked up Ring Fit Adventure again for the last few weeks, and that only works with Joy-Cons. So if one of those was not connecting to the system, that would be a problem. Other than that, nothing super special. I've already tried playing the game that I'm reviewing this week some, so that's good. But I'll talk more about that on Sunday.
Speaking of Sundays, of course, don't forget.
Yes, also, we are also doing... Sorry, for the last 2 weeks, I've meant to mention this and just forgotten because I'm talking about weather or something. I've been Mac's been playing MS Saga, A New Dawn, which is a Gundam JRPG that isn't canon to any actual Gundam stuff, but I've been commentating along with that and providing
as our resident expert.
Insight into the weirder parts of the franchise.
It's been a lot of fun because and I would go so far as to say you're co-hosting it with me because your commentary adds a lot to that show.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And of course we've had Potato Sniff and Mr. Sargent helping us along as well in the chat, which has been a rather interesting dynamic. I'm not sure that there's a lot of shows like that
Yeah, I know about Gundam, but I don't actually know about the game, and I could just bring up a game facts guide or something to answer questions, but it's more helpful having someone who actually is familiar with the game to point us in the wrong direction when we're missing, in the right direction when we're missing something.
But it's weird because you're geeking out about the franchise is actually helpful. It shouldn't make that much of a difference other than adding some color to it, and yet it's still helping us along.
Hmm.
Also, I should note that I am trying to co-opt Petty Fan into co-hosting Mac Fails at MMOs with me. We're still negotiating the finer points of which game to play because if nothing else, we want to bring attention to the fact that there is a Final Fantasy 14 stream that regularly happens on this channel, and it's regularly hitting a 0.5 to 0.9 viewership. It's like, come on, guys, it's such a popular game. And Elemental Ogre is on that show. Where are you guys? We love you.
Well, Ogre doesn't seem to love us anymore. He stopped following anyone who wasn't Petty Fan.
I don't get it. But that's neither here nor there.
Still
I just
chat sometimes, but just by text. But I prefer that anyway.
I asked him the other day if there was any friction, and he hasn't responded to me. So, you know.
well, that's not, like I said, that's neither here nor there. I'm not seeking to air dirty laundry on the air or anything like that. I was more concerned about the fact that I know Final Fantasy 14 still has a massive following out there, so it's depressing when the show has big numbers and then the stream just is like.
I will note about the final.
It doesn't seem right.
I will note about the Final Fantasy 14 streams. They've been inconsistent lately in terms of their scheduling. Petty, you might want to address this.
Currently one of our member of our group, his power supply blew up. So he currently has one on order, and hopefully that's the only thing wrong. But as any of us knows with computers,
it didn't have collateral damage when it exploded, you mean?
Yeah. Because many times when that happens, more than just power supply goes, if you know what I mean.
Because fun fact about how power supplies work, they tend to be connected to a lot of things inside the computer. It's weird.
Yeah, it's almost like, copper and shit works. So yeah,
it's almost like it provides electricity to all of the electronic components in the machine. Go figure, right?
And yeah,
Anyway,
that's been the big problem. There's also been some minor scheduling issues that seem to be ironed out, at least for now. There may be some at the end of April, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
But yes, it's difficult to tank or do DPS or heal or whatever when your computer is a smoking wreck.
Yeah.
The only smell I hate worse than that is cat poop.
Imagine them combined.
Moving on.
As soon as you said that, I smelled it. Thank you for that.
And
Oh boy. Yeah. All right, moving on to my news because we do have to get going here.
Yes.
Nothing much this week. Still waiting for the stimulus check on my end. I think I know what's going on there, but I'll talk more about that on the other show since it seems to be, let's say, politically motivated from what I'm seeing. Anyway, weather's been heating up after, let's say, winter's last respite. I mean, yes, I know it doesn't get cold down here, but it was cold by Florida standards. And my mother is going out of area for the weekend to celebrate her 70th birthday.
Fun.
Yeah, hopefully she has a good time. Bit concerned because still not vaccinated. Hopefully the vaccine will be available in this fucking state to everyone in fucking April. We are shooting for like mid-April on that. That's all my news. And merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Charles Yu of Voxpop Games.
Hello. Great to
Hello.
be here.
Indeed, it's good to have you. How are you doing tonight?
Uh, well, it's been a busy week. uh, and yeah, but I'm doing well, and I'm really eager to see what you guys have in store for me.
Indeed. So I would like to get to know the people behind usually a game or a studio because we have a lot of indie folk here. They tend to sometimes they are the studio, sometimes they're a small team. But you're a bit of a special case, but we'll get to that in a bit. But we do start with this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
When it came to getting into video games on a personal level, I think the first video game that I actually have fond memories of that really got me into gaming as a hobby was The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I mean, I guess I played like RuneScape and stuff before that, but I really only did that because all my friends were playing RuneScape. I don't recall actually enjoying RuneScape all that much. Um, Oblivion was what made me really start thinking about video games as a hobby. But what made me really decide to become a game designer was actually this Flash game called Every Day the Same Dream. I don't know how much you guys want me to dive into that game.
You can dive into it for a bit, I think.
Yeah, so Every Day the Same Dream is an art game where what I loved about it so much was it sort of used the language of video games against the player, right? There are certain conventions that we pick up playing side scrolling games, right? You always move to the right, you interact with whatever you can, right? But if you actually obey that format in Every Day the Same Dream, what ends up happening is you get out of bed, you get dressed, you get stuck in traffic, you go to work, and then you wake up in bed again, and nothing changes, and you that will repeat over and over. So you have to find simple ways to sort of break the general format, right? So one of those ways is literally like when you reach street level, instead of going right, go left. And when it comes when you say that to somebody who doesn't play video games, that might sound crazy, right? They'll be like, "Oh yeah, sure, go left. What's so special about that?" Right? But if you've played a lot of side scrollers, you know that if you go right for three screens, you don't necessarily expect that you can go left at that point, right? Um, and other things like in the middle of traffic, get out and just like get out of your car and stand in traffic, or don't get dressed when you go to work. This kind of thing. Um, that's what I really loved. So that was the first game that really got me thinking about using the mechanics and sort of well, I guess language. It sounds a little pretentious when you say it like that, but like the conventions of video games as a way to actually express something to the player.
Hmm. And did you find fulfillment in this particular form of expression?
Yes, uh, I, I know we're not supposed to get into it yet, but the reason I started Voxpop was really because I wanted to be an indie dev really hard. I
Hmm.
think there's something very fulfilling about building something yourself and being able to control the vision. Because it's like even if you can't do everything that you want, even if the scope is limited, even if there are some elements that are messed up, it's like it's all you're doing. You know, one thing that made it hard to work on in large groups for a project is like if the project fails, it's hard to take ownership of that failure. And if the project succeeds, sometimes you don't. It's hard to take ownership of the success as well. But when you make a game by yourself, it really is yours, and that was rewarding to me.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And I suppose since we've segued into Vox Pop, we should talk about what that is. Because, this is a rarity for our program. Not the first digital distribution service we've featured, but, they're not all that common, let's say. And from what I've seen, there's a particular aspect of Vox Pop that separates itself from the others, let's say, and it's a
Absolutely.
curious one to me because it's peer to peer. Now, if that term sounds familiar to the audience, it's because that's how BitTorrent works. That's how all of the mid 2000s music piracy things, Kazaa and their ilk work.
That's also how Bitcoin works. You guys were sort of dishing on crypto earlier. Funny thing, one of the first concepts that we pivoted away from with Voxpop was to make it some kind of crypto thing.
Oh,
We're not, but that was one of the original
I'm
ideas.
just trying to visualize a blockchain enabled. I guess you could use it like for licensing and stuff.
Yeah, because it was also whatever. Anyway, that idea is gone. I don't want to spend too much time talking
Okay.
about what we didn't do.
Sorry.
But yeah, that was part of it. And we found out that in addition to it being way too damaging to people's equipment, like it's too expensive to tell people to mine this new coin that probably won't be worth much at the start, right? Also, everybody was just really angry at crypto projects. So
Also, it is a little bit, environmentally irresponsible.
oh yeah, a whole lot of reasons. Yeah, and it's just like really hard to get started as well. It's a very specialized skill, so like very few engineers know how to build for that kind of thing. Anyway, sorry, I've gone on this tangent far too long. So the core idea behind Voxpop is to create a distribution platform that will help independent game designers market their games. Right. One of the things that really crushed me when I started trying to sell my own games, and I realized this would be an issue for me as an indie dev, is I am a neurotic introvert and I do not use social media. And what that means is basically no chance for me to be discovered, right? But even if you do use social media regularly, that doesn't necessarily mean you have an audience. And reaching a new audience can be very difficult, especially when you're trying to reach out to a crowded market, as I'm sure you guys can really sympathize with, right? So, but indie devs don't really have the money to buy advertisements and sponsor streamers, right? A lot of indie devs, especially solo devs, are sort of funding everything out of pocket. So the idea was, can we create a system where we can let developers leverage their potential future profits in order to help promote their games now? Voxpop is peer-to-peer, it's true. But the main core element of Voxpop's business model is profit sharing. Whenever anybody helps a game get sold, this could be through recommendations, through seeding, or through just onboarding new users that then buy games, you get a percentage of the sale that you help generate. This percentage is developer set for user incentives. And what's key here is developers can actually set specific percentages for specific users. Now, we see the interaction going two ways, right? This will allow developers who have no real money up front to reach out to streamers and come to an agreement and say, hey, listen, if you stream my game for your audience, right, use this recommendation link, just put it wherever you would put a Ko-fi or a Patreon, right? Anybody who buys my game from you, I'll give you 20% of that or 30% of that, right? And meanwhile, streaming channels who maybe aren't super large, what we might call micro influencers, these people, even if they don't necessarily have a specific deal with each developer, can still take a profit of what they deserve, right? Everything they generate, all the audience they bring in, they get the share they deserve. And that's really the core idea behind Voxpop, linking indie devs and small streamers together to sort of create this ecosystem.
Certainly a noble goal. Though, getting back to the peer-to-peer stuff, I'm curious as to why that particular methodology of distribution. What made that so attractive to distribute these games under your banner?
To be frank, it has to do with overhead. When you're working with cloud services like AWS, which we have to. We're not going to be able to set up a data center. You get charged for the amount of data you handle. So a peer-to-peer structure helps us keep overhead down, and it also makes it easier for us to expand outward, especially into other countries where it can just help with distributing these files.
Okay, that's a sensible answer. Like, and
Yeah, I wish I could tell you it's due to some like it was part of our noble goal, but really it just comes down to the fact that we're a small team of people, and we have limited resources, but we're trying to do the most that we can.
duly noted. And so, how do you find independent developers? How
Well,
do you bring them to your fold? You know, because communication is a big part of that process.
So there are a couple of ways that we reach out to independent developers. One of them actually is just through social media and Twitter. We might see games on Reddit or Twitter that look interesting, and we'll reach out to those devs. And a lot of times, devs come to us these days. When devs started coming to us, and we didn't have to come to them all the time, that felt great. Pre-coronavirus, this was actually before the platform like really existed on the internet yet. We actually would go to like events, right? We went to PAX East, the last PAX East before it got closed for Corona. We also used to go to oh crap, oh brains blanking. Game jams. That's the term. We also used to go to game jams, showcase days, these kinds of small indie dev ice cream socials and stuff. That's another way we used to meet people. And now that we can't meet people physically anymore, what we do also look through organizations. We are part of the IDGA. The IDGA. We go to universities. Sometimes students will showcase their games. And of course, we are partnered with some gaming nonprofits like Able Gamers.
Okay. And how long has Voxpop been around?
Oof. Okay, so we launched our platform in January, but the thing about entrepreneurship is sometimes it takes a really long time to get your idea off the ground. I was running around begging for money in Silicon Valley, like in 2019. um, so I guess it really depends on where you want to start it. But launch was 2 months ago.
Wow, that's shorter than I would have anticipated.
Yeah, you got to show rapid growth these days if you want like any real chance for investors to give you a chance. It's kind of a bear market right now. Nobody wants to take risks, so we just got to push as hard as we can, grow as fast as we can.
I suppose, what are your goals in that particular area? Like, what kind of growth are you, or rather, are the investors looking for?
What are the investors looking for? As much as they can bleed out of us, I guess. As for what we're looking for, I really just want to get Voxpop to break even. My big goal is to push us to a point where we're making enough money to keep the lights on, and we can just keep funding our operations as we move forward. I don't need. Oh, geez. Here's the thing, right? Anything I say on here, an investor might listen in on, and they don't really want to hear somebody say that they don't care if they get rich. But I don't necessarily need to get rich off of this or anything like that for my personal goals. And neither does my partner, Mark. He would tell you the same thing. Our big goal, get Voxpop to break even, get to a point where we can help as many people as possible. Right? You can talk noble goals all day, but if you go bust, you're helping no one, right? So yeah, that's our biggest goal. Break even, get to the point where we're making more money than we are putting into it every month.
Right. And I suppose this isn't an easy question to ask, but it does need to be asked. And how certain are you of this particular goal? Oh.
You know what? I'm very confident in Voxpop, actually. You sort of go through peaks and troughs with like trying to run this kind of business. I'm sure you guys can relate with your channels,
Mm-hmm.
but I I am so proud of what our team has been able to accomplish in such a short period of time. And the amount of support that we've gotten uh, from our developers and our streaming partners, it's really heartening. And I do believe we'll get to that point. I think we'll get there very quickly.
How quickly?
Hmm. Well, not to sound over optimistic, but in as little as 6 months, I think we could get there.
Okay. That, that is a lofty goal, I'm assuming. Yeah. Um, here, we should actually talk about the
Adam,
game.
what was that? I think you broke up a little.
Okay, repeating what I just said. Let us talk about the games themselves, because they are the star of the show, after all. What are you offering? Especially, what are you offering that can't be getting, however you want, whatever the
Can't be got.
yeah, cannot be got on other services. Thank you.
So on Voxpop, we do have several exclusive titles that we are trying to push. One of them is actually also the best-selling game on our client. It's called Guardians of Ladino Forest, aka Golf. I love this game, and because it's okay. Well, whatever. Anyway, I'll get to that in a second. But golf sort of plays like a Space Harrier meets like sports game type thing. It's uh, eh, it's got like a Mode 7 esque, not really Mode 7, but one of those good old like retro Mode 7 esque type visual appeal. Um, to me, golf is I hope I don't sound too rude when I say this. The perfect example of a game that really needs someone to play it to help promote this game, right? One thing that you might struggle with as an indie dev is making screenshots or cutting trailers that look good, right? Especially if you work in, uh, ooh, especially if you're working in a genre that doesn't necessarily film well, like visual novels, or if your game itself has an art style that maybe in stills kind of looks shabby, right? You really, really, really need streamers to play your game and actually showcase what the experience of playing this game is like. And golf is one of those games where, yeah, maybe the screenshots don't look perfect, right? The art's all done by one guy who's also done basically everything about the game as well, Adrian Dietrich. But the game plays so excellently. There's so much great audiovisual feedback in
Yeah, I'm
each of
looking
its
at your
elements.
store. The visual style is very. I mean, obviously, you got like vector, you got like scaling and rotation and stuff that you couldn't do, but the art style in general is pretty fairly early Windows
For golf or for Vox Pop?
for golf.
Okay.
Sorry, no, your store looks fine.
uh,
Just a lot of fairly simple color patterns and stuff. It looks good. It's just I know what you mean by
yeah.
it.
So
The stills don't show off the best aspects of it.
Exactly, right? And there's so much more to games like this than what they look like in screenshots. Um, and so much more to gameplay as well, right? So uh,
Also, I was gonna joke about it had better involve actual golf mechanics, and I can see you have me covered there. So
it does, yeah. That's the coolest thing about it. Um, I keep talking up this game. I love it. Another game that we've got going on so far. Again, great example of a game that plays better than it looks in stills is Knockout Party. We are trying to set up tournaments for Knockout Party. We're getting our streamers on it. That's one of the things that we're trying to do for our games is get people playing it to just showcase these things to and what they look like to an audience. It's very Gang Beasts style party game. And I mentioned that we are partnered with some gaming nonprofits earlier. That's our partnership with um, Able Gamers actually came about because of one of our exclusives. We have a um, why uh, uh, Weaponeer. That's it. Sorry, I'm having trouble remembering some of these proper names and stuff right now. It's uh, been a long day. So Weaponeer, uh, the developer came to us with a goal, right? He really, really, really wanted to give all of his profits to a charity. He wanted to do as much good as he could with his game. I think it's a very noble cause. Um, and so that's how we came in, and we actually negotiated this partnership deal between Weaponeer and Able Gamers. And thanks to Plug World, we've actually decided to start building a developer charity spec into Voxpop as well, so that any other developers who want to maybe dedicate a portion of their profits to charity can do so as well. Weaponeer itself is such a great pairing for Able Gamers, which, by the way, if, for those of you who aren't aware, Able Gamers is a foundation that helps promote accessibility in video games to people with disabilities. Weaponeer is such a perfect game for a foundation like that because the entire game is designed to be played with one major input. So you can play all of Weaponeer with one hand.
that's
And
nice.
the game is itself is excellent. It's a very streamlined dungeon crawler. Again, tuned very well, plays great in motion, and it's coming to our store. It's exclusive.
So how are you crawling dungeon with one input? Does it like in terms of like changing direction, or is it just linear?
If I can be 100% honest, I haven't personally gotten to get my hands on. I helped set up the deal between Plug World and Able Gamers, but this game is still in production. It's a prototype. So I have not personally gotten my hands on it yet. So I don't want to say too much about how it plays.
Fair enough. I'm just curious because I am interested in accessibility in gaming, and it's great if you can reduce it so that it can be played by people who can only do one input. I'm just curious because that's normally a thing where you at least need a couple of things, I think, but we'll see how they did it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, what are some of the other exclusives that are on your store?
Uh, to be honest, as the CEO, I don't always get a time to review all of our games in depth. I could talk a bit about some of the other exclusive we have, like Smugglers of Cygnus from Longplay, for example. But I would not feel confident in describing how these games play. But yeah, if you go to our store, any game that has the Made for Voxpop logo in the upper right hand corner, these are games that are either exclusive to us or have exclusive content built into them. So, not all of our made for games are 100% exclusive to Voxpop, but all of them have some element that you can only find in Voxpop and nowhere else.
Okay. Can you speak to any exclusive or exclusive content upcoming?
Well, like I said, the main one that I'm personally interested in is Weaponeer. But again, if you go to our website, Voxpop website, and you go to um, like start scrolling down our coming soon list, you can see also the games that we have come soon. Actually, one game in particular that the Voxpop team actually contributed directly to was Elu. So Elu is a Voxpop exclusive. It's a sort of Super Meat Boy style of super hard 2D platformer. Um, and it and we at Voxpop, we've been actually working very closely with the development team to help with elements of the tuning and visual style and even story. And it's the first game project that we actually got to contribute to directly, which
How
is
do you
very
spell that
exciting.
one?
Huh?
How do you spell that one?
Ealu.
Okay.
Another thing that's really cool about Elu is that it and was a challenge for us, is that Elu has a level creator. So to help Elu distribute the level to its community was somewhat of a challenge for the Voxpop team because we are building a new platform. But the level of cooperation we were able to foster on this title is very exciting for me personally, and I hope that we'll be able to get to do more of it in the future.
And tying everything together here, what games of yours, if any, are on Voxpop? You mentioned you started this because of the indie dev connection and all that.
None so far. My games need a lot more tuning before I'd feel comfortable selling them, but that is something that I hope Voxpop will get to eventually is internal development. There are a lot of game prototypes that Mark and I have, and small games that we have that we really want to build out and make into complete products, hopefully. But college student me, when he was like, "Yeah, you know what? No one will help me sell my games. I'll start my own. It'll be great, and I'll be making my own games in like a year or something like."
I like your ratings pineapple also.
That's an invention of our social media manager, Holly. She does great work, and uh, I a lot of people have responded very well to Pina. I actually asked Holly like what inspired Pina. Was there any thought process behind it? And she kind of just shrugged her shoulders and was like, "I thought it would be great to throw sunglasses on a pineapple," and then boom, that's our mascot. Um, yes, but internal development will probably come soon. We have two games in particular that we think are ripe to build out a little bit more and throw on the store. The first is one of my games, Agroculture. It's a sort of PvP multiplayer local multiplayer farming game. Um,
Ah, yes,
it's
PvP farming. Those two things
exactly
that are,
PvP
that are
farming.
that are well known for going together all the time.
Oh yeah, so actually that came about because of a joke my professor during like an advanced game design class or something. He said it offhandedly, like, "This is so ridiculous. Battle royale farming. Who would ever think to actually try to do something like that?" And I thought, you know what? That's very funny. I'll make it and I'll call it agroculture. So it's the idea is that the players can't actually attack each other directly. So they have to do things like fight over water resources, block each other's water resources from the water sources, and steal crops when they're fully grown, that kind of stuff.
It's not
Um,
my fault that this pumpkin patch on my land is draining all the water and nutrients from the soil on your side of the fence.
exactly. And I realized describing it that way might make it sound a little slow paced, but it's super quick. It happens in rounds of um, 30 seconds each, and you're trying to win best of three or best of five. The other is, oh shit, I forgot his name for it. Mark wanted a sort of roguelike shooter game. Uh, it's like a zombie apocalypse, but you play as dads and you carry around your baby in like a little harness, and your baby's your weapon. I don't know. It was some sort of pun. I will say uh, Day of the Dad or something. Let's call it. That's a good pun. But I don't actually remember what pun was. But yeah, so these are projects that we'll hopefully be able to develop into our own Voxpop exclusives. But before we can do any of that, we need the platform in place, and we need to make sure we're doing everything we can to support our devs and our streamers.
Okay. Right. So we're running a bit low on time here. So I'll wrap up my line of questions by asking this particular one. It's not perhaps a easy question to ask given its negative connotations, but I do have to ask it because game preservation is an interest of mine. Say Voxpop is ultimately unsuccessful. Will these games be attached to this? I mean, does the peer-to-peer stuff allow the games to live on should this platform not be the success that it could be?
So if Voxpop fails, people will be able to access their titles, no problem. They are stored as executables on the desktop. And we do package them with a bit of software, but it would take one button press to unlock everything and make sure that everyone can keep playing their games, even if Voxpop fails. You won't be able to access it through the Voxpop client anymore, probably, but as long as it's installed on your desktop, you should be able to grab them. As for keeping the peer-to-peer side of the network running after Voxpop is gone, there are no current plans for that, but I suppose we'll talk about it when we get there. The way Voxpop is currently built, it would not be suitable for that, because while we do use peer-to-peer file distribution, like I said, mostly to keep overhead down, we do still have a sort of central database where our client contacts, and that's how we handle DRM. So yeah, no current plans to keep the network going if the company fails, but I suppose with a little adjustment, it would theoretically be possible.
Okay, that is good to hear in terms of the game still being around if, you know, Voxpop is not. Like I said,
Yeah,
it's not a subject I like breaching, but, you know, I do have to account for what may be. Like,
yeah, and frankly, any entrepreneur, anyone who's starting a business, like if you happen to be listening to the show right now, you need to be prepared to answer questions about what's going to happen if your business fails, because you can do everything right and things could still go wrong. We certainly weren't planning on this pandemic when we started Voxpop, and it's really hurt the team and our development in a number of ways. Unexpected things like that will happen. And so it is worth considering what will happen to you and what will happen to your user base if things don't work out as planned.
right. And at this point, I'll give my colleagues here a chance to ask any questions that they want to.
I actually have one. Do you have, like, you mentioned there's a central server. Does the client check against that with the peer-to-peer stuff so, you know, it can make sure nobody's, you know, injecting anything malicious into the game without you guys knowing?
Yes.
Very good.
I'm not an engineer personally, so I hope you don't expect me to say too much more than that.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was one of the fundamental goals.
Yeah, because we've had a lot of problems with stuff like that with, like, say, BitTorrent or LimeWire. So yeah, other various peer-to-peer things.
Yeah.
We're using WebTorrent, and as I understand it, and I could be off base, but as I understand it, the way it works is it creates a hash for each chunk of the files that it sends, and that's how we check against that, and that's how we make sure that the correct files are being sent.
Okay, that's it from me.
Okay.
I think I asked all my questions as they came up.
I'm good.
All right. I don't know if Mac wants to ask anything.
I don't have a lot to say this week. Like I said, I'm pretty much taking an observational role. So, as I told the guys in the background chat, I really want to thank you for being with us. And that was very interesting and informative. And I wish you guys the best of luck because it sounds like an amazing enterprise.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here. And if those of you who might have come via Voxpop like what they heard and want to hear more, be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and all the things that you have to do to keep up with a stream in this modern age. Anyway,
you can also find. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
You can also find us at voxpopgames.com.
Yes. So good luck to you. Hopefully you will find the success that you're looking for, and we wish you the best in that endeavor.
Absolutely.
Petty, Petty, play us to the next segment.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we're talking about the Blaster Master series. We're doing this because there's been a lull in the news in terms of current events, but there was Blaster Master news like at the beginning of the month, I think, where Blaster Master 03 was announced, which is probably the most successful Blaster Master has ever been. Maybe outside the original.
It's certainly at least one more game than I was probably really expecting when they when Inti Creates decided to do a soft remake of Blaster Master.
It's not a soft remake. I mean, I played Blaster Master 0. It's actually pretty faithful to the game until the end.
Yeah, no, I have to. You know what I mean, though. It's like, okay, it wasn't like sold as like a big new epic thing that they were doing.
Right. But it's also not just a reboot, but Blaster Master 0 is a merging, because to take you through the history of Blaster Master, like Blaster Master started off as a thing called Metafight. That is to say, that was the name of the Japanese version of the first game. Mm-hmm. And then when it got brought over to the West back in '88, I think, it was renamed Blaster Master. And the thing of it is, Blaster Master became a much more popular thing than Metafight ever did. I'm not even sure if Metafight is all that remembered in Japan. But I do know Blaster Master is maybe not the top tier of the NES Classic, but certainly high up the list.
Well, it is for an NES game. It's definitely one of the more. I mean, this is a system where you were still having some games that were basically one screen, or where there were just like linear platform stuff. And this is a game that has non-linear exploration, and it has a mix of side-scrolling tank sections and then top-down dungeon sections. Even just I'm talking about the original here. It's actually a pretty intricate game for the time.
Right.
So no wonder it aged fairly well.
Yeah. And continuing on, Blaster Master also got this novelization called The World. It was a series of books called The Worlds of Power. There were several books. Like I remember there was a one on Castlevania that was just Castlevania 2 that was just so awful because they couldn't resist the cheesy kid horror puns and shit. Which I can't say is out of character for early Castlevania, given the gag credits. But even as a kid, I thought that they weren't good. Metal Gear, which I didn't read, but that's infamous because that airbrushed the Kyle Reese's gun. But getting to Blaster Master, this actually is the introduction of canonicity, because this is where the character of Eve comes from.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Because the original game did have the main character of Metafight renamed as Jason Frudnick, and that he was chasing a frog named Fred.
Yes. And Eve comes from the book. Like I said, it's really weird that these Worlds of Power things ended up being influential in any regard. They were not considered to be good even as children's literature, let's say. Yeah. So Metafight became Blaster Master. Blaster Master got, I don't know how popular it was in sales, but it was popular enough where it got its own line, let's say. Because the next game is Blaster Master Boy or Blaster Master Junior. What they did here was another time-honored tradition of this particular period in video gaming. They took a game from another series and passed it off as this other series.
What's that? Final Fantasy Adventure? Final Fantasy Mystic Quest?
I'm like, yeah, but Blaster Master Boy or Junior, if you're European, this is actually okay. Try to follow this, because it's the sequel to a Bomberman spin-off called Robo Warrior, and we got Robo Warrior over here on the NES. It's a fairly obscure game because it's just not that good. But if you watch I know why they picked this, because it's got that top-down view, and the character kind of fits in that helmeted slot. It looks like
plausible. War. It's a character that you could pass off as being related.
Right, until you actually see the gameplay where it looks exactly like fucking Robo Warrior. It's just...
and again, this was a time where having gameplay like something was a lot less of a guarantee of being a sequel.
Right.
Remember, there are a whole bunch of second entries in the series on the NES that are all kind of, okay, and what does that have to do with...
I'm aware.
Stares intently at Zelda 2.
Yeah. And then there's the thing that came next was Blaster Master 2. This was a Genesis only sequel. It's a bit weird that they put the sequel on the competing platform, but I suppose this is why Sunsoft kind of had to bow out of the Western publishing game in the 16-bit era. I'm just saying maybe it wasn't the best idea, no matter what of quality, to put the sequel to your game on a platform that didn't host the previous version of that. And the Super NES got no Blaster Master either. So it's not like a Konami situation where, here, we'll get you an exclusive version of that or whatever. And Blaster Master 2 is generally considered to be inferior to the original. It's got, I can't really speak to it because I've never played Blaster Master 2. I just know it's not really held in any regard, if I'm being honest. It's not even really hated, just kind of forgotten. Indeed, that's what I could say about most things that came after the original Blaster Master, Blaster Master and below.
Yeah, I think I bought that PS1 game.
Yeah,
and I may still have it sealed in the packaging 20 years later.
So we found another one who at least has blasting again.
Yeah.
I think I still have it wrapped in plastic after buying it for $9.99 in the bargain bin.
Yeah. yeah, the PlayStation version came and went. There's Blaster Master Blasting Again, which is interesting in the sense that this is an actual sequel. This is the only actual sequel to Metafight. So, like, if you're playing along by those rules, this is the actual Blaster Master 2. But, since nobody does, Blasting Again, once again, kind of just faded away. Then there was Blaster Master Overdrive for the WiiWare, which was, the first remake of Blaster Master 1. And once again, it was overwhelming in its mediocrity.
Yeah, I just haven't had much to say throughout this discussion because I only vaguely remember the original Blaster Master. It's like it's one of those. It's the longest running franchise that nobody knows about anymore.
Well, that would be true until a few years ago when Blaster Master Zero arrived, because this is the game that jump started the series. Not just the Blaster Master Zero was like I was going over. This was advertised as a sort of remake of the original, but mild spoilers. It will go off into its own direction once you're like done with the initial bits of the game. Most of the game is faithful, but it does have remake bits as well, and it's got a lot more story. It's done by Inti Creates,
Okay.
who are who are
These
renowned
are the
for.
people who made like well they did a lot of work with Capcom on Mega Man Zero, and I think also some of the Battle Network ones.
Yeah, they did. They've done Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon.
Yeah, and since then they've made a whole bunch more. Well, they've made a few different things that are kind of spin-offy of, or are in the style of Mega Man 0 the Gunvolt series, and there was something else I can't remember. And yeah, they made Curse. They made the 8-bit retro style Bloodstained games, and I think they also did Galgun, which is pretty unrelated.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that it's fucking canon to Gunvolt, apparently.
Point of order is Blaster Master Zero, was another Blaster Master thing. It's just this time people paid attention, probably because the Inti Creates pedigree and art style. And
yeah, they have they don't have a huge amount of variety in the stuff they've worked on, but they have a pretty high general standard of quality in terms of retro platformer style games, or even not super retro.
Plus, this might have been it might have been the beneficiary of being at the right place in the right time, because it was an early title for the Nintendo Switch. It was not a Nintendo Switch title; it was actually built for the 3DS, because that's kind of where Indie Creates made their bones during that time period. But it got ported to the Switch, and there wasn't much there at the time. So it's gone on to be released on Windows and the PlayStation 4. To the point where we got a new Blaster Master game, Blaster Master Zero. I've played it. I played it a lot less than the original than Blaster Master Zero. That's mainly because I'm not a big fan of the chunk-based design, if I can call it that. That is to say, you explore smaller areas that are not connected. Like, you have to get enough fuel to jump to a new area.
Mostly, it's actually fighting star charts to get there, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it was. And
but yeah, Blaster Master. Well, also Blaster Master Zero, mechanically built pretty exactly off of the original. You have pretty much the same kind of guns, and they power up in the same way, and you get the more or less the same power ups for the tank. This resulted in some, like, they did do something like your gun gets weaker when you take a hit, but in Blaster Master Zero they added a thing where you can take a hit and it's like a safety release thing, so you can take one hit and you're okay as long as you don't get hit again soon in terms of saving your gun. but it brought over a lot of things from the original game that were not particularly balanced, and 2 introduced a bunch of other mechanics to try, like, you have different guns, you have different tank power-ups, there's more reason to use not the max power gun. The tank mechanics are different. They introduced a like dodge counter mechanic to make the overworld fighting a little bit more dynamic and stuff. And some of it kind of hard to get used to. Some people aren't as huge of a fan of it. And like Adam said, also instead of being like one connected overworld with sub dungeons, because you're on a planet, in this one you're traveling from planet to planet trying to cure Eve from the mutant corruption that she got at the end of the previous game, I guess. Which results in, I mean, there's still the actual big planets are pretty decent sized, but there are also a lot of moons that are like one small challenge area, and that's it gives a game a significantly different feel than when there's one bigger interconnected world.
Mm-hmm. And indeed, Blaster Master 03, this is set to be released on July 29th, 2021. Not a whole bunch has been showed so far, but then again, the game just got announced, and there's still a few months to showcase what the game is about, I suppose. Not that Inti Creates games get all that much footage from, they'll get trailers, but like they don't get the big overview things that AAA stuff gets. Like, and it's apparently supposed to cap off the Blaster Master Zero series. Though I'm not sure if they ever intended this to be an actual trilogy. Like, I suspect personally that they saw the success of the first Blaster Master game and just said, we'll retroactively make it a trilogy or whatever. That can't be taken as fact. It's just my personal interpretation of what happened there. And as far as if the game is good, I suspect it will be. I'm just hoping it's better designed than Blaster Master 02. Like I said, I just wasn't a fan of what they did there in terms of the design approach. I'm sure the actual gameplay is going to be up to their usual par.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's also worth noting this is going to be hitting the Epic Game Store as well. I don't okay. It's just as far as I know, the other 2 Blaster Master Zero games aren't on that particular storefront. So
they are on Steam now, right?
Yeah, they are on Steam. I'm just saying they're not on the Epic Game Store. So I'm going to assume that the other 2 parts are going to show up there in the interim, or maybe around the time, when this game launches, because otherwise it's a bit curious, because Blaster Master isn't like, say, Hitman 3, where, that's a name that can sell on its own. Even if you might not have played a Hitman game before, it's not as strange as, here's the 3rd thing in a niche franchise that you might want to start on. That's apparently the end to a trilogy. Make of that what you will. Anyway,
it's also perhaps worth noting that both Blaster Master Zero and Blaster Master 02 have had extra character modes that you have either small paid DLC, or I think all the DLC when it first came out was free, where you get to play as other mostly Inti Creates characters from other games, which can be vaguely amusing.
And yeah, any other commentary on Blaster Master?
It's a series that exists.
It's a thing.
Indeed.
Yes, it is. And as surprising as it is that it's been this enduring, I'm not sad to see it enduring, because I enjoyed the first game, back in the day, and I'll admit that's the only Blaster Master I played before Blaster Master Zero. You know,
Who knows? We may play it on Mac Paladin's Retro Gaming Emporium.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, anyway, so that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments Silicon. Coming up on the week ahead. As always, we will be having a new installment of The Last News Desk on the Left in about 20 minutes at time of recording. On Friday, we might be doing a multiplayer play session of Monster Jam Steel Titans 2. It's just I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to run this. I was about to test this today, and then things came up, so I'm gonna try and test this tomorrow. And that being said, on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Dicey Dungeons. This is actually fairly literal. It's a dungeon, a roguelike, if you will, that is dice based. It's not, it's not just dicey in that roguelike mantra. It's dicey in it's full of dice, and you play as dice. You are the warrior dice, you are the thief dice, and so on and so forth. We got more Dark for the PlayStation 4. Let's see, Petty, that's your game if I'm remembering correctly. And we got Gemini for the Nintendo Switch. And we've got Nectar of the Gods, which is a free-to-play kind of bug-based tower defense game. I'm not exactly sure what genre to put this in.
Wait, bug-based?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. The Nectar of the Gods is referring to like sugar more than actual nectar, I will say.
Yeah.
But this is a free-to-play game, so everyone can access it. In spite of that, I got DLC for this. Though I'm not sure exactly how that came into play. Anyway, so that's what's happening this week. So until about 20 minutes from now, I shall wish you good gaming.
Woot.